Hello and welcome back. On the last episode of Will, A Wonderful World, we met Spotty, who had issues with an ambulance and his father figure. And there was also Chang Ming, who had issues. When we scroll to the right, I'm having issues already. Chang Ming, who had issues with Kang, Bakia, or Bakia. And then there was one afterwards, who also with Chang, but also with Alicia. And that's the three that we covered last time. And now we've got more letters. More from Jimmy, your rule. One from Kang. And
Dios, ¿qué hice mal?
Another from Alicia. Since Alicia seems to be on her own, let's go with hers first. Because why not? Anyway. So, Jack. There was a quiet street in Hong Kong. There was a quiet alley, and on that quiet street, at the end of the alley, there was a coffee shop with a sign in the shape of a maple leaf. Inside the shop sat its owner, who had a peculiar taste in clothes, at least in the opinion of many. I still vividly remembered the first time I met him. He was wearing a pair of red high heels and a pair of skin-tight black leather pants, and a lavish, fluffy fur coat. He had always told us to call him Mama. Cool. It reminds me of the Insomnian Files. He still identified as a man, but preferred dressing as a woman. We all made our choices, and he understood more than most that being different need not lead to loneliness. Mama had saved my life. Not only had he saved me when I was being harassed, he had even let me work at this coffee. Yeah, cool. Rescue and a job. And he paid me 3,000 Hong Kong dollars a month. I'm assuming that's a lot. Oh, okay, it's not. It wasn't very much in Hong Kong, but I got to live at the coffee shop, so that I could save up most of my salary and send it back to my brother back in Mexico. So this is set in a different time. I hope that I could help pay for school. There were a few other misfits like me whom Mum had taken under his wing. Hang, who could never tell ketchup apart from jalapeno sauce. Raja, who couldn't help singing whenever he picked up a goblet. Jack, who would always wipe the table twice. Okay, and this is about Jack, I believe. We all had different coloured skin. We didn't speak each other's languages, but we had all been learning from each other as well. Okay, at least you all have the common language of. I don't want to assume English because you're in Hong Kong. We would often talk to each other in English, there we go, Cantonese, Mandarin, and Spanish, all at once. Okay. Miraculously, we usually manage to understand each other pretty well. Yeah, if you spend enough time with each other, fair enough. We always had a great time together. We shared the same bedroom with two bunk beds. Jack slept on top of my bunk, and Hang where I just slept on the other one. Jack was only 15. He had curly blonde hair and a pair of clear blue eyes. Carlos was a few years younger than him. When we had been in the orphanage, he and I slept in the bunk bed like this too. That's why I like to stare up at the top bunk before I fell asleep. And I imagined it was a 15-year-old Carlos sleeping up there. However, the peaceful days did not last too long. Only Jack and I were in the shop that day. He had just taken out the trash out the back door. Moments later, I heard muffling sounds and a fighting yelling in the back. I ran at the back door and saw a couple of tall, strong men pinning Jack to the ground, tying his hands and feet behind his back. Jack's lips were bleeding and seemed to be unconscious. I wanted to run back upstairs to find Raja, but I knew he was sleeping in the bedroom. Before I could, someone caught me up from behind. Then my face was covered in a foul-smelling piece of wet cloth. When I woke up, it was already deep into the night. Jack and I were locked inside what seemed to be a small warehouse. Jack woke up almost at the same time as me. We both looked out the window and we could see the blinking neon light of a busy Melody Hall. If I remembered correctly, there was an auction house opposite Melody Hall. Mama used to tell us that the auction house on the street was not really legitimate and they're selling people. Legendary paintings that had been gone missing, rare ore that had been illegally smuggled in. That's kind of gross. Ancient mummies of an undetermined age, and panda bears. Okay, panda bears. Oh. The giant panda are an endangered mammal whose only natural habitat is in the southwest of China. There are fewer than 2,000 giant pandas living in the wild nowadays. Because of their highly valuable status, gifting or leasing pandas to a foreign country has become a unique diplomatic operation for China. The so-called panda diplomacy. The earliest such transaction could be traced back into 685 AD, when Empress Consort Wu of the Tang Dynasty gifted 2 pandas to the Japanese Emperor Tenmu, along with 70 panda hides. Okay. Even exotic looking young boys and girls, so that being Jack and Alicia in the situation. As long as there was a buyer, there was nothing they wouldn't sell. We couldn't stay here. I'd been through this once, and you survived, and you escaped. You can do this again. This time, I felt calm. I had to get myself out of here, and I would take Jack with me too. There was only one guard in the hallway. I slammed the door into him. I slammed it into the door to get him to come over. I told him that Jack had stopped breathing. He didn't think too much of it. Perhaps he thought we were just a couple of kids. He opened the door and crouched next to Jack, who was playing dead. When he reached out to feel Jack's breath, I pulled the gun out from his waistband and pushed it against the back of his head. Then we gagged his mouth, tied his hands and feet behind him, and locked him inside the room before we snuck downstairs. We didn't run into anybody on our way down to the reception desk. Just when I was about to celebrate our good fortune, someone yelled out from behind us. I turned around and saw a very sleepy man who was holding a mug. He rubbed his eyes and slammed the mug onto the reception desk when he saw our faces. The alarm went off. I grabbed Jack's hand and we started running towards the port as fast as we could. 4, maybe 5 guys came after us from the auction house. There were lots of warehouses and small roads near the port, and that made up a complex maze. We had to play cat and mouse with our chasers before we could find a secure hiding place. At the southwest corner of the port, there was a recycling centre. The centre had fenced in a lot of piles of garbage in it. Only a couple of overtime workers were operating the crane. They would lift a dumpster high up and then dump everything into the lot. There were many extra large dumpsters outside the lot. Jack and I had to split up earlier, and I waved at Jack from a distance to come over. The dumpster was empty. Stop hiding, we saw you. I'm over here. I tried to draw attention to myself. They opened the cover of the dumpster. I walked out from the large cargo container not far from behind them. I tried to distract them. However, they had already opened the dumpster cover and seen Jack hiding inside. They didn't tie us up to avoid attracting too much attention. Instead, they surrounded us and marched us towards the auction house. If we didn't follow their orders, the guns at their waistbands would make us regret it. I fell into a deep despair. Jack must have been so frightened too. I looked at him, but for a moment I thought I might have been mistaken. Then I thought I had caught him smiling. We were so close. Is Jack in on this? We were so close to see the auction house when one of the guards' phones rang. Everyone was temporarily distracted by the phone, including me. But the gunshot interrupted the ringing. The guard had already fallen down. A bullet had gone through his head. Jack had just shot him while he with a smile on his face. He had somehow taken a gun from one of the guards. He then turned around and shot the second guard right in his chest. He didn't waste any of the bullets. It's almost like magic. Soon, all 5 guards were lying on the ground. Jack looked at me with a casual expression on his face. Alicia, let's get out of here. I was still in shock for what just happened, and before I could say okay, I heard another shot from far away. Then a splashing sound nearby. Jack had dropped to his knees and slowly collapsed. Bright red liquid was oozing from a small hole in the middle of his forehead. The young man with the mug was standing behind us at a distance. Only this time he was carrying a gun instead of a mug. He started walking slowly towards us. I held my hands on my head and dropped to the ground, sobbing. Heavenly Father, why on earth would you let this happen to us? What have we done wrong? Alicia. Yeah, it's unfortunate really, but like the fact that Jack was smiling about this, I'm not exactly. Ooh. They open the dumpster. Oh yeah, wait, no, home. If the dumpster was empty, open the dumpster was okay. Yeah, so it should be this way, right? Stop hiding, we saw you. He says, okay, but I'm over here. You open the dumpster, it was empty. Seems easy enough. I walked out from behind the cargo container not far away to try and distract them. However, they'd already opened the dumpster cover. There was no one inside. You fool, go get the girl. They tied me up again and went back to look for Jack for a long time. They couldn't find him anywhere though. In the end, they decided to take me back first. On the way, I saw a shadow in the corner of my eye. I looked up. A huge dumpster had been lifted up and emptied into the lot of the recycling centre. I also noticed a small body roll out together with the garbage. None of the guards were aware of it. They never realised that the person they had been looking for was right under their noses. Jack had always reminded me of my brother. I would often change my shift to the same as one as his. That's not good. Because, like, think about it. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. Unlike Carlos, Jack never talked too much. However, what do you mean unlike Carlos? You just said that Carlos would never speak because of his experience. However, I would still try and chat with him. After a while, we started to talk more and more with each other, although he rarely mentioned anything about himself. Once, I accidentally saw a horrifying burn scar on his back when he was changing. He must have a story that he didn't want to think about. Another time, I asked him what he would like to become when he was older. He pondered for a while and said, a policeman, or maybe a doctor. The look on his face was almost like he had been looking at the ocean of blossoming flowers. He had been enchanted by the hypnotizing scent of the flowers. The warm summer breeze was kissing his exquisite blonde hair, and the glowing sunlight was shining inside of his sky blue eyes. He almost looked like an angel to me at that moment. I knew he was not just saying that. He had a lot of books. When he wasn't working, he would always be reading in the bedroom. When he was on a shift, he would sit behind a bar and read when there was not too many customers. He spent all of his earnings on books. Although I didn't think one could be a policeman or a doctor through only self-learning. Still, I believe in Jack. My little angel would be able to do it. My little angel is concerning, Alicia, because I believe that if he did his best, his dream would come true. That's an S. You still got caught. Okay. Before we go to that post, let's try Jimmy and Gangs, which I think special op midnight and VR rules. Let's go with VR. Hey, I just noticed that. I just noticed there's a cat on the letter. Yeah, there was writing on the other one. This is the first time I've ever seen something like this. This is not true. There was mathematical. Well, there was equations, not necessarily mathematical. Oh, this must be a doodle that Jimmy sketched onto the letter. So someone had... Okay. If the doodle is very obvious, it might show some... show up on letters... But if the doodle is very obvious, it might show up on some letters we receive. What is this that he drew? I think it's a cartoon cat. It's called Sir Spotty. It was pretty famous in their world. We also have it in our dictionary. Well, I didn't know that he was a painter too. It's very impressive. Something like this barely qualifies him as a painter. Today was Sunday. Climbed out of bed a lot earlier than usual. I wanted to try my new VR game before Rocky woke up. In the 1960s, Ivan Sutherland, father of computer graphics, proposed that his paper, The Ultimate Display, that computers will be able to control everything in the virtual world. The chairs we sat on, the bullets can be fatal, the so-called Ultimate Display. Nevertheless, the first relatively mature VR system didn't appear until the 1980s, when Scott Fisher developed View at NASA, NASA's Ames Research Center. The system included subsystems such as the head display, hand gloves, and voice recognition, and surround sound. It was used primarily for the astronaut training in VR, training in NASA. Fast forward to 2016, the conversation surrounding VR and various types of headsets started to get serious, and it was widely regarded as the year of virtual reality. All the conversations were kick-started because of the first consumer-grade head display being finally produced by Oculus, which was bought earlier by Facebook in 2014. The deal successfully brought the concept of VR to the public. In any case, VR isn't really as young as many people think. It just means much more than just a display on the headset. Yeah, this is pretty accurate. Yeah. Before Rocky woke up, there were all kinds of games available. Now FES, dancing games, even X-rated ones. Jimmy, no. The VR gear, it was a big thing these days, and the good ones were also so expensive. The one I got cost almost 10 grand. If I hadn't told my dad that I was buying this for the research purposes, which technically wasn't entirely untrue, there was no way he would have bought it for me. I mean, Jimmy, you're a hacker. I don't want to condone crime, but you basically could just steal the money and buy it. I put the gear on. It was almost like a helmet. It was more like a helmet, really, but it was quite heavy. However, wow, it did feel quite realistic. It was as if my body had erased Erased. I can't read. It was as if my body entered the virtual world. I changed my position. Huh. That felt so good. That's weird. Huh. What kind of game are you playing? I tried all the tricks that I could. I felt I was exhausted. I took the gear off and realized that Rocky had been up. He was wearing the smart glasses that I'd bought a while ago and was looking right in my direction. My eyes widened in shock as I noticed the recording light blinking on his glasses. Rocky, what are you doing? The way you were playing looked too funny, so I decided to keep it for prosperity. Or posterity. Record, the automatic streaming option was on. What? Wait, what? Streaming? I hurried over to my computer, logged onto the streaming website and checked my channel. Oh my gosh, everything had been broadcast. There had been over 5 million viewers that went straight up onto the top of of the rankings. The commenters had gone berserk. Everyone was screaming pervert. Jimmy, this is why you don't play these sort of games in VR. Someone had even said they would dox me. I was so screwed. Why would you... Jimmy. I mean, this is Rocky's fault as well, but Rocky isn't the one who kind of set himself up for this. Jimmy. PM. Warehouse 23, Port of Busan. The warehouse was half full. There was an asphalt barrel in the middle of it that did not seem like it belonged there. I walked towards to check the contents, and as I suspected, it wasn't filled with asphalt. A person had been stuffed inside. It was a very muscular man. He was barely breathing. This morning at work, I'd received an express delivery. There was nothing but a photo in the envelope, with time and a location written on the back. The same barrel was at the center of the photo. It was the exact same spot I was looking right at now with my own eyes. Then I heard scurrying footsteps near the gate of the warehouse, and the clinking of sound of guns. Warehouse 23 belonged to the Musan gang. It could not have been more obvious than that this was a trap by set up for me by Choi Young-han. Yet I had to come. 20 minutes later, the muscular man and I were tied together, sitting on the ground with our backs against each other. The two guards who were in charge of watching us had been watching us for their replacements. Had been waiting for their replacements. But they were so sleepy they could barely keep their eyes open. It was pretty late after all. Anyone who had been watching two middle-aged men like us would get sleepy. I quietly cut the ropes with the razor blade glued to my sleeve while the guard were dozing off. I'd grabbed the Glock 43 I had hidden in my pant leg and covered it with my palm. Oops. I can't go back, can I? No. Well, that's something we missed. I might head back at some point. After years of police training around here, I knew every single warehouse at this port like the back of my hand. All of the warehouse from number 15 to number 25 were large-sized ones, and we're in 23 right here. They were usually filled with a lot of huge cargo containers. If there were some reinforcements outside to distract them, I should be able to defend myself inside, even with only 6 bullets. They were not the only ones waiting for their prey tonight. It was all part of my plan. There was a shoddy clock in the wall of the warehouse. It made a ticking noise every time the hand moved. The hour hand was almost on 12, and the minute hand was 10 minutes away from it. 10 minutes to midnight. I gave the muscular man a signal in the palm of his hand behind my back and waited patiently. I handed him the gun. Lots of noise were coming from outside of the warehouse. It sounded a lot like people in cars. At the same moment, the minute hand hit 12, we both stood up and ran towards the back of the warehouse. However, I didn't expect the muscular man to suddenly trip and fall, only after a few steps. His legs were presumably numb and stiff after being cramped for so long. The two guards were wide awake now. Multiple gunshots echoed inside the warehouse. They never intended to let us get out of here alive. There was certainly no reason to hold back anymore. And then I saw holes explode all over the muscular man's body, right in front of me. You monsters. Cool. Go to hell. That's the only two things I'll read from that sentence. I turned around and raised my gun. In the chaos, a bullet hit my thigh. Suddenly, the other bullet, still flying in the air, seemed to moving in slow motion. They were so slow I could even see their rotation and vapor trails after them. I realized that he had woken up. When I woke up, I was lying in a cheap motel somewhere, changed into some clean clothes. There was a half-eaten sandwich and a glass of orange juice on a nightstand next to my bed. Cool, that's kind of the other personality to provide food and a drink. I opened my left fist. As expected, there was a note with a message that looked like it had been handwritten by a child. These new clothes cost 50,000. I survived, but Cho Yohan has got what he wanted again. I had lost another important person in my life again. Kang back here. So the muscular man. Hold on, I'm going to replay just to get that dictionary. Finally, there we go. Right. A Glock 43, aka G43, is a semi-automatic pistol produced by the Austrian weapons manufacturer Glock Guess MBH. Its standard magazine has a capacity of 6. A G43 is a slimline version of the subcompact Glock 26 that features the ultra-compact sliding frame, which makes it the smallest one of the entire series. The extension at the end of the magazine provides additional support at the pinky finger. It helps improve the accuracy for shooting. Stability, and compactness has made it one of the favorites for undercover detectives and private security officers. There we go. Then exit right. There we go. Start. What? Okay. Cool. This is going to be weird. Jimmy somehow has a gun. Perhaps they were desperate to try to stay awake. Two guards even started watching. Okay, I should have thought this through. Lots of noise was coming out from outside the warehouse, sounded like a lot of people in cars. At the same moment, the minute hand hit 12, we both stood up and ran towards the warehouse. However, I didn't expect the muscular man to suddenly trip and fall. His legs and were cramped too. Sounds as falling over alarmed the guards. They never intended to let. Okay. Well, that's everything we're missing. I don't know what I expected, really. I honestly don't know. It's my fault. The game was so nauseating. I made the right decision to have my party carry the gun. It was so wise. But the game felt super boring, like I wasn't actually shooting something. I took 10 grand helmet off and threw it back of the drawer. Rocky was still snoring in his bed, and he probably stayed up late again for a soccer game. Never mind him. I was going to head out roam the streets now. I put on the smart glasses that I'd bought a while ago and snuck out of the school into the real three-dimensional world. Okay, so that's good for him. So we just swap this, right? This should be a successful route if Jimmy just needs the gun. Perhaps they were desperate to try and stay awake. The two guards started watching things on their phone, just in case Our legs were too stiff to run. I accidentally clicked that. I'm assuming it means that they changed positions. All noises were coming from outside the warehouse. The moment we hit 12, we ran. By the time the two guards noticed we were gone, we'd already taken cover behind the cargo containers. Any time now, just a little longer. The guard with the gun was walking towards the back of the warehouse, and the others were behind him. I needed to stall a little longer. Couldn't let them get any closer. I started to stretch. I stared at the stretched shadows on the ground. I had a barrel of gun peeking out from behind the container. Then I pulled the trigger, and my first shot hit the right hand of the guard in front. Nice. Seeing their Potter hurt, screaming in pain, the other guard stopped moving and ran towards us out of fear. And then the garage gate slowly opened. They were here, right on time. Hooray! And with that, we'll call it there. Thank you for stopping by. Hopefully you had fun. And I'll see you on the next one. With that, goodbye.